Hello everyone and welcome. Today I have a tutorial which I think you will like. So we're going to start off in Photoshop. We're going to do all our graphics in there and then we're going to export that image and add it onto our website. In fact, let me show you what this looks like. We see that this is our main image, all designed in Photoshop. And then this is the part where the user gets to buy the watch. And then on the bottom here, we also have the contact section. And what I've done here, instead of just having a white background, I've added this watch as a background element. So this is what we'll be doing today. So as I mentioned, the journey is going to start in Photoshop. So I'll show you how to put all this together. Now, today's episode is brought to you by divicake.com. Check out their huge selection of Divi themes, layouts, and plugins. The link is in the description below. Okay, so in fact, before we go to Photoshop, let's talk about the places where you can get some very good images. Right, so there's pexels.com. Yes, this is the one I used. So what I did here was I just came in and I searched for my images. So for example, I can just, let's say, watch images. I'm meant to search for watches. Okay, so I do that. And these are the watches. And the Rolex that I used is somewhere here. Okay, but you get the idea. So first of all, you want to download that image. And the second image that I downloaded was called Adventure, I think. Okay, let's search for Adventure and hopefully we can see that image. Oh, right here it is. Okay, so this is the image that I used in the tutorial. So go to pexels.com and download the images. Now, once your images are downloaded, they need to go into Photoshop to be processed. Now, if you're finding these steps in Photoshop quite difficult to follow, I have a course specifically for web designers. It's called Photoshop for Web Designers. In fact, let me show you where it is. So if you go to diviuniversity.com, it's right here, Photoshop for Web Designers. So this course covers pretty much graphic design principles, typography, and also composition. So it covers quite a lot, and also how to optimize your images when you design your website. So this course is only $97 and it covers quite a lot. And if you do have any questions, I can always add even more lessons in this course. Fantastic. Okay, so let's switch over here to my website and let's get designing. And before I forget, I also have a free WordPress course. So if you want to learn how to design websites using WordPress, I have a course which is absolutely free. So go ahead, download it. The link is in the description below. Okay, so now it's time to work on our images and have them ready for our website. So I downloaded the images already. They're in my downloads folder. So what I need to do now is to open them using Photoshop. So here's my first image. I'm going to right click, open with Photoshop. Okay, so now that it's open, the next thing I need to do is to crop this because it doesn't look proportional. So come over here on the left and click on this crop tool. So I'm just going to select my crop like that. And I just want to make sure that I have my proportions right. And this is 2/3 foreground, 1/3 sky. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit enter. So now that commits to that crop, which is great. The next thing I need to do now is to go and drag my second image. So I'm going to click here again. And the second image is the watch. So I'm going to right click and click on. In fact, this time we don't need to right click or do any of that. We just need to drag it onto the desktop like that. Okay, great. So now that we have it here, we need to rotate it. So I'm going to hit Control T and then I'm just going to rotate this watch until I'm happy with the angle. And then I'm just going to drag it into position. Just like that. Maybe rotate it a little bit more. Okay, great. So I think this works. So all I have to do now is to commit to this by hitting enter. Now the next stage is to blend these two images together. So I'm going to come over here and click on the layer mask like that. And then I'm going to select my brush tool. So with black as my foreground color, I'm just going to start painting on the watch, especially on the line, because we want that line to disappear and blend into the image. Okay, so that looks great. I'm really happy with that. And then the next thing we need to do is to really make this watch as the main focus. So for us to do that, we need to create a depth of field. So I'm going to click on the first image here and add a blur. So over here on the top, I'm going to click on filter, blur, and then I'm going to select Gaussian blur. And you can see here that the blur has been applied. And then over here on the radius, you can actually add more blur if you want it, but we don't want it to be too much. So I'm going to click OK. So now we have a problem. It's going to be very difficult for us to match the color of these two images. In fact, if you're happy to go with this, you can just go ahead with this design. But what I normally do is I colorize it. So let me show you what I do. So first of all, what you want to do is to turn this image into black and white. But before we do that, we need to merge these images. So I'm going to hit Shift, Option, Command E. So what happens now is I've merged these two bottom layers onto the top. So to turn this image into a black and white image, you need to hit Shift, Command U and make sure you're clicking the layer. So now we have this black and white image. Okay, so we're not done yet. So the next stage now is to colorize it. So to do that, we're going to hit Command U. And then you want to make sure that you click this checkbox here which says colorize. Right, so now we can play around with our colors. So as soon as you start dragging these sliders, you can see here that the color is changing. Okay, so you can have it purple or you can have it more on the blue side. So I preferred having it around here. And then for the saturation, you can actually bump this all the way up if you wanted, but that doesn't look realistic. So let's bring it down to about maybe 46. And then we also have the lightness here that we can play around with. So we can make it really bright like that. Or we can reduce this really, really low like that. So it depends on the look that you want to go with. So let's see what we're going to go with here. So let's go with the darker version. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to click OK. So now that this image is saved, the next thing to do now is to save it for the web. So the command to save for the web is Shift, Option, Command S if you're on a Mac. Now here's the most important part. So this part here is very, very important because when you save this image, right now it's way too big. So you want to make sure that the size that you have is optimized for web. So right now, as you can see, we have 5,000 by 2,000. This is way too big. So let's try 1920 because that's a decent size. Okay, so this is going to update. Right, so this is much better. And then over here, we want to make sure that this is a JPEG. Okay, so I'm just going to save JPEG high. And over here on the quality, I'm just going to make sure it's 90. Okay, so we're not losing a lot of quality. So now this image is going to download at 4 seconds at 1 megabits per second. So this is going to be really fast. So this image now has been optimized. So let's go ahead and save it. So you want to click on save and you can save this on your desktop or wherever you want on your computer. Okay, so now that we've designed our main image and this is the banner image, the next image we're going to work on now is the image that we're going to use as a background element on one of our sections. So let's go ahead and do that. So the image that we need to work on is the watch. So I have the watch already here. So let me show you what I did. So the steps are quite straightforward. So this is the full image. So what you want to do is to add a layer above this. So make sure the background layer is selected. Click this layer icon and fill that layer with white like that. And then over here on the opacity, what you want to do is to reduce the opacity until you start seeing the watch. Okay, just like that. So right now it's at 90%. I'm really happy with that. Once you're done with that, again, you want to save this for web. So the shortcut is Shift, Option, Command S. And then again, this needs to be 1920 and the height is 1115 and the height is fine. Okay, so let's save this. And then finally, so I'm going to come over here to my downloads folder and then I am going to find the watch. I think it's this one. Right click, open with Photoshop. Okay, so as you can see, the height and the width is not really how I want it. So in order for us to fix this, you need to come over here to the crop tool and just add your crop tool like that. And then just drag the corners until you are happy with the dimensions of that box. Right, I think I'm happy with that. Just hit enter. Now we have these white lines on the side. And to fix that, I'm just going to hit Command J to duplicate this. I'm going to paint the sides here with a brush, and the color is going to be black. So hit B to get your brush tool, and then just start painting, just like that. Okay, and then do the same on the other side. Okay, so once you're done painting the sides and you are happy with what you've done, all you have to do one more time is to save this for web. So it's Shift Option Command S, and again you want to make sure that this is a small size. So let's go with 900 this time, and then you click on save and then save that image. Okay, so all our work is now done in Photoshop. So what we need to do next is to go to Divi, create a brand new page, and start adding all our images. So let's go ahead and do that. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is to come over here to Pages, click on Add New, and let's call this page Rolex. Click on Use the Divi Builder, use Visual Builder. So what I'm going to do to make things easy for me here is to use a pre-made layout and then just delete the parts that I don't need. So I'm going to choose pre-made layout, and the layout we're going to use is going to be the Juice Shop. So I'm going to click here, and I'm okay with the landing page. So I'm going to click Use this layout. So all my images and the layout is going to be downloaded now onto my page. And then once that's done, I'm going to go in and start doing all my adjustments. So when you first open this page, it's quite difficult to see how this page was constructed. Like, for example, is this background image on the section background, or is it on the rows, or is it on the actual module? So what we need to do is to use some really clever techniques here. So I'm going to click here on the gear icon, click on Filter, and click on Modified Style. So over here we can see that all that was done here was to add this background color. So I'm going to delete that. And then next, I'm just going to scroll down here and see which sections I don't need and which ones I need. So definitely, I'm not going to need this one. So I'm going to get rid of it, get rid of this one. And we don't need this one as well. And then over here on the bottom, in fact, there's a lot here that we need to delete. So we are going to be left with just a few. Great. Okay, so that looks much better now. Let's go in and start adding all our images. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon and access the full width header settings. So over here, the title needs to be our own title. So I'm just going to add the word Discover. And here we have Juice Shop. So we don't need that. So in fact, let me come over here to this paintbrush tool, click on it. And now I can access everything that I need. So I'm going to, first of all, center my text, and then over here on the size, let's change this to about 8 VW because it's a bit too big. Okay, so that looks much better. Now I'm going to go into the text below this. So the Juice Shop needs to be set to Rolex watches. Okay, Rolex watches on sale. Okay, so that looks fine so far. Let's go ahead and save this. Okay, so I'm pretty much happy with that. Now, the next thing we need to do is to change this background image. So I'm not sure where that background image was added. So I'm going to click here on the filter, modified styles, and then we can see here that this is the background image. So let's go ahead and add it. I'm going to delete this one here, and then I'm going to add my own image. So I have my image here in the media library. So I'm just going to select it, click upload an image. So the next thing we want to do here is to change the color of this text right here. So I'm going to click here on this brush tool. And let's change that color. So I'm going to click here and choose a color that works with our design. Okay, in fact, that's not good enough. Let's choose something that's easier to read on that background. Okay, so let's go with that. That's much better. Okay, great. So I'm going to come over here to spacing, and let's add padding here to the top, and bottom here it's at 30%. So let's reduce that to about 10%. Okay. Right. So now we can play around with this. In fact, what I'm going to do here is to activate my chain and then just start adding my custom padding. So I think what works with this is about 20%. Okay. So that's great. I'm going to go ahead now and save. So that's looking great. The next thing I need to do now is to add my image over here. So I'm going to delete this image here and click this plus button. And I need an image module. In fact, you know what? I could have just replaced that. Right. So my image is in the media library. So I'm going to select it, click upload an image, save that. And then we want to add a background color over here. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon, click on background, and we're going to add a solid black color. Save that. So that's looking good. Now it's time to add a button onto this, our call to action button. So I'm going to click this plus button and add my button module. And then I'm just going to say buy now. And then over here on the link, this is where you want to add the link to where that buy now page is, or the shopping cart. And then next on this design tab, we need to customize this button. So I'm going to click here on the button, use custom styles for button. And we're going to choose a color that works well with our design. So I'm going to click here because our palette has already been made for us. I'm going to go with that. Okay. Now here on the border width, I'm going to get rid of the border width because we don't need that. And then we also don't need the border radius, to be honest. So I'm going to get rid of that too. So here the text is regular. Let's make it semi-bold. And for the text color, I think it looks better when it's white. So let's change that. Okay, that's much better. And then finally on the letter spacing, we're just going to increase the letter spacing here up to about 3. So that looks much better. Okay, I'm really happy with that. And then let's go ahead and save. Okay, so now we have our button, we have our watch, and what we may want to do here as well is to go in and change the color of our text. So I'm just going to click here. And here it says organic juices, blah, blah, blah. Let's change this to the best Rolex watch. So here we just want something that works well with our design. And then the text that we have here, you can just perhaps maybe duplicate that and just give it a bit more spacing. So if this is your landing page, what you want to do is, of course, go in and add the text that you need that works with your design. So now I'm going to go ahead and save. So let's take a look here briefly how it looks like so far. And that looks really, really nice actually. Okay, now it's time to work on this main image that we have here. So let's go into our section settings and see where this image is. So I'm going to click here on the filter, modified styles, and then we can see here that this is where the image is. So I'm going to click here and upload my own image. And I'm going to go with the image that we created in Photoshop. Click upload an image, and now we can see that it really blends in quite nice. Okay, so what we may want to do here is you can see here that we have a gradient. So I'm going to come over here to the gradient, and the first color that we have on the gradient here is white. So I can actually reduce that and that opacity and show a bit more of the actual watch. So I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead now and save. And then if you want to increase the size of this row, you can always go into the row settings, design, and then you want to come over here to sizing and click use custom width. But for now, I'm just going to leave this as it is and then click on save. Okay, so pretty much our page is done. Finally, we want to come over here and make sure that we have our own text. So let's go in and edit this. Oh, actually, this is an image. So I'm going to delete that, save. Then I'm going to go in and add a text module. Click the plus button, search for my text module. I'm just going to type the word Rolex, highlight it and set this to H2 and then save. Now, we want this to be uniform throughout our whole design. So I'm going to come over here, click on the settings, design, headings. So we want our headings to be consistent. So what I'm going to do here is to right click and copy heading styles. I'm going to save that, scroll all the way to the bottom here, right click and paste heading styles. So now we can see that all the styles that we have from this heading is now applied onto the bottom here. And this looks quite nice actually. Okay, so now that our page is complete, all we have to do now is to save and publish. And this is our final page. Now, we're not done yet, because if this is going to be a landing page or a page that people come to for a specific reason, and in this case, this is a sale, we want people to buy this watch because it's on promotion. This page ideally does not need to have a header and a footer applied to it. So I'm going to show you now how to get rid of that. So over here, we want to go into our dashboard, find the page, click on edit. And then over here to the right, we want to make sure that the template that we're going to use is a blank template, because at the moment it's set to default template. So once you've done that, click on update. Great. So now let's click on view page. Right. So it looks much better now. See, we don't have a footer and we don't have a header. But the one thing that I also need to change here is the animation. I'm not really happy with the way the animation is working here. It's zooming in and I don't want that. So I'm going to click back over here on Enable Visual Builder. And then I'm going to click on my module settings for my full width header, design, animation. And we can see here that it's set to the zoom effect. So I'm going to click on fade and then click save. Now, as you noticed, when I did this, the fade, it was fading from white. So I would rather have this fading from black. So I'm going to come over here to my section settings, click on background and add a background color. And my color is going to be black, and then save. Okay, now let's publish our page and save it. And then next, exit the Visual Builder. So now we can see that it's fading from black to this image. So this looks great. I'm really pleased with this. Now, the final thing we're going to do now is to test and see if this page works well on mobile devices. So I'm going to click on Enable Visual Builder, and then I'm going to click here on these three little dots, expand settings, and then I'm going to click on the tablet view first. Now we have a problem. So we can see here that the word discover does not fit correctly. Everything else seems to be okay. So let's go in and fix that. So I'm going to come over here, click on my settings, design. So we want to target our title text. Great. So over here for our text size, I'm going to click this little phone icon, click on tablet, and then I'm going to reduce my size. Okay. So I think 4 VW works great for this. And then next, I'm going to click here on the subtitle, and the text size is 24, so I'm going to reduce that to about 18. Okay, so I think that works well. So this stage is very important because you want to make sure that your design is optimized for all the three mobile devices. So your desktop, tablets, and also your smartphones. So this is the process that you go through to really make sure that everything is working okay. Okay, so we've come to the end of our tutorial. By the way, this tutorial is brought to you by divicake.com. Check out their huge selection of Divi themes, plugins, and layouts. The link to that is in the show notes below. And also, if you want to learn how to design websites using WordPress, I have a free course that you can access right away. The link is in the description below. And if you want to take your designs to the next level, I have a Divi course which is on sale. It's on diviuniversity.com. There's also a coupon code which you can get 50% discount if you buy today. And on this tutorial, we were using some Photoshop skills. Now, if you want to go deep into Photoshop and design images like we did today, I also have a course for that, and it is only going for $97. So go ahead and purchase these if you want to take your design to the next level. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you taking your time out to watch this long tutorial. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Take care.